All right, let's focus now on China. President Xi Jinping is in Uzbekistan today ahead of his big meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is Xi's first appearance on the world stage since the COVID pandemic began. The two will talk on the sidelines of the Uzbeki summit this week. According to the Kremlin, the meeting will show an alternative to the Western world, but it also comes as a fragile time for Russia as they continue to lose ground in Ukraine. Gordon Chang is with us now. He's the author of The Great U.S.-China Tech War. Always great to talk to you, Gordon.
Thank you, John.
Well, according to the Kremlin's own press release, Ukraine is on the agenda for Xi and Putin to discuss. Obviously, not a comfortable situation for Putin to be in. Give us your thoughts on how that conversation might play out.
When you have the world's two most dangerous figures talking about the world's most volatile situation, probably no good will come of it. Now, Xi Jinping has basically tied himself to a corpse. But the interesting thing, John, is last Friday, China's third-ranking leader, who was in Moscow at the time, gave a full-throated support for the Russian war effort, which means that China is doubling down as the Russian army is sinking in Ukraine. That's not to say that Russia is going to lose in Ukraine, but right now we're seeing real signs of partnership between China and Russia, and the Biden administration isn't doing anything to really stop this.
And this seems like a real crucial point where the Biden administration could apply a lot more pressure to cause some tension between the two of these guys, Putin and Xi.
Yes, well, China clearly has violated sanctions that the West has imposed on Russia for Ukraine. The Biden administration keeps warning China not to do things. China continues to do things. And basically, the Biden administration says, well, no big deal. So really right now, what is important is for Washington to start being as good as its word and impose those coercive measures, not just on Russia, but on China as well.
Gordon, is there any kind of discussion of a quid pro quo? You know, we'll maintain our support, at least publicly, for the war in Ukraine if you guys support us when it comes to Taiwan?
I think that has always been the bargain, John. We have heard Russia on a number of occasions over the last half decade say that it was supporting China's position on Taiwan and on other things. We have seen the Chinese and the Russian navies drill in waters near Taiwan. And clearly the statements that the Chinese and the Russian militaries have made about working together in the region clearly indicate that that is indeed the deal.
And now, because the Kremlin is publicly stating that Ukraine is on the agenda, we have to wonder what that Taiwan conversation sounds like. And there has been rumors about a potential invasion of Taiwan sometime this fall. Is that part of the conversation in Uzbekistan?
I'm sure that they are talking about Taiwan. I don't think that there's going to be an invasion this fall for a number of reasons. But nonetheless, China is pressuring Taiwan very hard. It is engaging in dangerous aerial intercepts, and one of those intercepts could end up in an accident that does lead to war in the region. So we've got to be alive to this. And the other thing, John, is we know that China is not only building up its military, but it's also mobilizing Chinese civilians to go to war. That means the country is prepared for battle. And that means the United States needs to be much more prepared because you've got Pentagon leaders, really very little sense of urgency when you especially look at their plans to take out important U.S. weapons because they want to pay for modernization, which makes us less capable in the here and now when China might actually do something. So, we've got a real problem in Washington right now. No sense of urgency.
And I think that was on display yesterday in the White House press briefing when Biden's National Security Council spokesman John Kirby was there, and he kind of brushed off these concerns about Chinese land grabs here in the United States. And you know this, we've reported on this. Organizations linked to the CCP are just snatching up real estate, thousands of acres at a time, and a lot of times it's directly adjacent to U.S. military installations. But here's Kirby being asked about that.
The president has been nothing but clear about our concerns about Chinese unfair trade practices and economic practices.
Trade.
I understand that, ma'am, but
security and buying up land around military installations.
I'm probably not the right person to ask about home ownership here in the United States.
It's not a question of home ownership or land ownership, right? It's a national security question. So why can't Kirby even pretend to provide a better answer than that, Gordon?
Yeah, Kirby's title is National Security Coordinator. And what he said in that clip is that matters of national security are not in his swim lane. The purchase of 300 acres within 12 miles of the Grand Forks Air Force Base by a Chinese entity that now wants to build a corn milling plant that can be used to install passive surveillance devices, that is national security. And clearly the Biden administration is not paying attention to this because, that purchase should never have been permitted in the first place. We've got the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S., the Treasury-led interagency task force. They should not have permitted that acquisition. And clearly Kirby is out to lunch. He shouldn't be national security coordinator if he can't answer questions like that.
That's a fair point. It's not just the corn, too. We could talk about pork as well. And, the fact that China is buying so much market share in U.S. agriculture, that also should be a national security concern. I know it is for you, and it is for a lot of our audience. I don't know what's not for John Kirby. Great to see you, as always, Gordon Chang. Thanks so much.